All right, enough shenanigans. Enough shenanigans for this video. It's time for us to get to business. This is all about imperfect verbs, ladies and gentlemen. So last time around, when we dealt with verbs, they were in the preterito, they were in the preterite. And this time around, we got to get serious about learning the imperfect tense, or actually maybe going over the imperfect tense, because most of you had gone over this in Spanish too. This information can be found on page 42, página 42. So if you take a look at the book, it says here, el imperfecto, use the imperfect tense to talk about actions that happened regularly. In English, you often say used to or would to express this idea. And then take a look at this, the couple of examples here. Todos los meses, mi escuela organizaba una carrera. All right, so every month my school organized a race. So it was a repeated action in the past. Nuestro equipo nunca perdía. Our team never lost. Again, talking about repeated actions in the past. Take a look at this box over here. It says, ¿recuerdas? Expresiones como generalmente, a menudo, muchas veces, todos los días, siempre y nunca indican el uso del imperfecto. So all of those key words, generally, sometimes, a lot of times, every day, always, never, those are key words in Spanish that will indicate when to use the imperfect tense, or when the imperfect tense is indicating an action that happened on a repeated basis in the past. Take a look at some of these in the libro. Take a look at estar. Let's take an AR ending verb like estar. Okay, so now, reaching back to Spanish too, I hope you guys remember your aba, abas, aba, abamos, aban, and ia, ias, ia, iamos, and ian verbs, all right? So take a look at an AR verb such as estar. Yo estaba, tú estabas, usted, él, ella estaba, nosotros estábamos, ustedes, ellos, ellas estaban. Take a look at the ER ending verbs like tener. Yo tenía, tú tenías, usted, él, ella tenía, nosotros teníamos, ustedes, ellos, ellas tenían. And then finally a IR ending infinitive. Vivir is a good example. Yo vivía, tú vivías, usted, él, ella vivía, nosotros vivíamos, ustedes, ellos, ellas vivían. Stem changing verbs do not have a stem change in the imperfect tense. So quería participar en el campeonato, pero no me sentía bien. So notice that the stem of those verbs, they stay the same. All right. Now there are 3 irregular verbs in the imperfect tense. What a relief. Whew. Thank goodness. All right. Only 3. And they are ir, ser, and ver. Everything else, when you're dealing with the imperfect tense, is going to end in aba, abas, aba, abamos, or aban, or ia, ia, ias, iamos, and ian. Because as you can remember that when we dealt with preterite verbs, wow, those were pretty tough compared to imperfect verbs. Take a look at where it says at the bottom over here, where it says the imperfect form of I is había. Now, anytime you see the word I, that's a form of haber, which basically means there is or there was, there is or there are. Now, in the imperfect tense, it's había, there was or there were or there used to be. Okay, so here's an example. Generalmente, no había muchos participantes en el campeonato. All right, so generally speaking, there weren't very many participants in the championship. All right, let me just show you a quick PowerPoint that will go over the ir, ser, ver part, and take a look at this. Actually, I should probably back up and tell you this. The fundamental difference between the preterite tense and the imperfect tense is that the preterite tense generally was a one-shot deal. Imperfect tense, actions that used to happen frequently. All right, take a look at trabajar, to work. Okay, preterite tense, yo trabajé. All right, so probably worked one time. Yo trabajaba, I used to work. Okay, again, on a repeated basis in the past. Here's your formula to make an imperfect verb. Drop the AR, ER, or IR ending and replace it with those endings that you saw. All right, and notice that the ER and IR endings are the same. So take a look at this chart. You could pause it right here if you need to. So more examples. I used cantar and tener and salir as your examples for the imperfect tense. I gotta also point out, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta make sure that you remember those accent marks when they need them, because I keep telling you to write them as you see them, and I keep telling you that we're gonna be covering why accent marks exist in the Spanish language. Trust me, that day is coming very, very soon. All right, so I think in the nosotros form and the vosotros form if you were in Spain, but I mean, for us in North America, nosotros cantábamos, teníamos, salíamos. Okay, make sure that you have those accent marks. Oh, and then also, of course, ER and IR ending imperfect verbs. Okay, as promised, let me show you ir, ser, and ver, and here they are. These are the 3 verbos irregulares that you're gonna have to memorize. And again, thank goodness, not as many as the preterite verbs. So there you are. So let's go ahead and take a look at ser. Yo era, tú eras, usted, él, ella era, nosotros éramos. Accent mark over the first E, or actually the only E. Ustedes, ellos, ellas eran. For ir, yo iba, tú ibas, usted, él, ella iba, nosotros íbamos, with an accent over the I. And then ustedes, ellos, ellas iban. And then finally for ver, yo veía, tú veías, usted, él, ella veía, nosotros veíamos, ustedes, ellos, ellas veían. And as you can see, all of the letters, the letter I in each of these have an acento. All right. And here's the imperfect form of haber. Había, habías, había, habíamos, habían, depending on the nouns and that you're describing or what they're doing. All right. So that's the imperfect tense verbs. And now the next thing that we got to go over is certain uses of the imperfect tense. So let me direct your attention to page 44, página 44 in your textbook. You've learned to use the imperfect to describe something that used to take place regularly. All right. You also use the imperfect in these situations. Check it out. To describe people, places, and situations in the past. Here are some examples. Hacía mucho calor. El estadio, oops, let me try that again. El estadio estaba lleno. Los espectadores gritaban. All right. It was very warm. The stadium was full, and the spectators yelled. Woo! All right. Here's another criteria. Here's another instance when you would use the imperfect tense to talk about a past action that was continuous or that kept happening. Los atletas se entrenaban en el gimnasio. So the athletes train themselves out in the gym. And then finally, a lot of times you're going to be using the imperfect tense to describe the date, the time, the age, and weather in the past. Era el 5 de noviembre. Eran las 6 de la mañana, pero ya hacía calor. All right, it was November 5th. It was 6 in the morning, but it was already warm. And that's what that is right there. The PowerPoint that goes along with this is this one right here. So let's see if I covered these already. Oh, and it looks like these are actually just a rehash of what you saw in the book. Okay, so not too different. Anyway, so those are the instances when you would use the imperfect tense that you're going to need to memorize for Chapter 1B. So for the second half of Chapter 1, Chapter 1B, it looks like we are heavily we're going to be heavily using the imperfect tense, el imperfecto. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, when in doubt, if you're ever wondering how to conjugate a verb in the imperfect tense and in any other tense, you've got this beautiful, wonderful website. So go to www.spanishdict.com/conjugation and then just type in your verb. You know what to do, all right? So for example, let's see here, ganar, to win. All right, let's take a look at what that turns into. And there it is. Here's the present tense, here's the preterite tense, and here is el imperfecto. Ganaba, ganabas, ganaba, ganábamos, ganaban. And that's what you got to do in order for you to conjugate those verbs in the imperfecto. And that is it. That is it for this video, señoritas y señores. So thanks very much for staying up late with me. And I do apologize for this being a late night homework video. So, you know, lots of stuff to do as a teacher. And so I am just happy that I got around to helping you learn some more Español. So once again, señoritas y señores, I am out of here. This is Señor Barbosa, and I will see you in la clase de Español. So adiós.